Welcome. This is Daryl King, and we are going live with Sogol Monfared at the Daryl King team, sharing the mindset. All right. Well, welcome, everybody, and thanks for being here. Everybody has options of where they can be, but we're going to have a fun-filled afternoon, sharing incredible accomplishments Sogol Monfared with us today. So she's going to be stepping into the real estate world of 2024. Sogol has not only thrived, but has become a definitive leader in the industry. Her journey began with remarkable strides in sales management and client relations, quickly propelling her to leadership roles across both corporate and private sectors. Her expertise extends deep into system implementation, marketing, branding, and leveraging her profound understanding of human psychology to enhance every interaction. In 2020, Sogol took on the role of manager director at RE/MAX Hallmark New Homes Division. Under her visionary leadership, the company soared to the top 3 positions across numerous developments in the Greater Toronto Area. Sogol's approach combines her vast network and extensive sale and marketing expertise with agile decision-making, setting new benchmarks for excellence and innovation in the field. Today, she's here to share her insights and strategy on how to build and elevate your property portfolio. Whether you're buying, selling, or investing, get ready to discover easy ways to win in the real estate market. So let's welcome Sogol.
That was some introduction.
Now we can end the show. That was a good introduction.
That was some introduction. Thank you very
Well,
much.
Sogol, we think the world of you.
Thank you.
I think there's a lot of great leaders out there, but RE/MAX Hallmark has got a gem when they hired you because you're so passionate about what you do, you love what you do, and you're there for the people, and you get things that nobody else is getting, right? You do a good job.
Thanks, Daryl.
So what drives you? Like, how do you get that drive? You're a young, beautiful lady with your 2 little puppy dogs there. What drives you to be so successful, so intuitive to what's going on?
Well, that's a great question. I think for most of us, and I think you are the same, it's wanting to help people, right? If you're good at something, I think it's built within us. We're wired that way, that automatically you would like to help others and get them to benefit from something that you're good at, right? And I know that you've done that for decades for your clients and for the region. So, yeah.
So being wired, guys, and it's having a passion. It's not always about the rewards. It's about having the passion to helping others, right? That's the key. Because I always believe everything is cyclical and everything will come around. So if you're helping others, you're helping yourself at the same time in other ways. So, that's what, if you're hanging around Sogol, you'll see that she's always making sure this little one's here, this little one's here, and cuddling them up like a Mother Hubbard type of thing. But, she has such great leadership. And that's what amazes me, right? That you can continue that, and it's not like, some there's leadership, it's hard-nosed, you're very easygoing, nice to be around at all times.
Oh, you're very sweet. I honestly think it also starts from the top, and I think we're very lucky at Hallmark. Our entire leadership team, starting from the top, from Ken, Deborah,
Kevin's
Steve,
very,
they're
Ken and Deborah both very
amazing,
easygoing. Now,
right?
Steve, on the other hand, he's Steve, this is you. Right?
Yes, it's been a great 4 years, and I look forward to doing it for many more years to come. And, what you mentioned about being passionate, if you find something that you're passionate about, because you like doing it, I think automatically you become better at it by paying attention and consistency. We were talking about consistency, right?
Consistency. The thing in any type of business or anything in life is the consistency to doing it every single day, right? If you do it now and again, your feet hit the water and you bark out of it, you're not going to succeed. You need to be consistent and go full out, right from start, right to finish. So tell us about pre-construction. Can you explain to our listeners what pre-construction investment entails and why it's such an attractive option? Because lots of people here now, there's a lot of properties now in the market that got flooded and the interest rates changed. But I always know that whatever goes up will come down and then it'll go back up again. So what's your thoughts and what is their best, like, explain to everybody here and on out there?
Sure. So pre-construction is basically buying in the future, right? You're purchasing something that you don't need to get a mortgage for, pay it off in full. You're not really fully responsible for it until it's ready, whether if it's 2 to 4 years down the line or maybe a little bit longer. It's not for everyone. Just like any other investment, it takes a certain scenario, a certain type of person that this can be good for, or in some cases really great. And that's where we come in as professionals to make sure that we treat each case individually and see, and we were just talking with you, she's nodding, before we got started, to treat each case in front of you as a complete individual who's there to understand what is best for them, right? So again, it's not for everyone. If you are looking currently or at any point in time not to get a mortgage for any reason, either you're not going to qualify or you already have several mortgages, you don't want another one immediately, or whatever the reason may be, that's a great reason to be able to secure today's pricing without getting a mortgage and then taking over in a few years. For those who are not ready to pay the 20% down payment right in one shot, and they would like to have a deposit and a down payment of 20% or more, that gives them time so that they can make those payments gradually over time. And also maybe resale clients who would like to purchase something, but they're like, well, Daryl, I don't know if I sell this, if I buy something, is it going to be coincide on the same day? Am I going to find what I like? So they can find something they like and they know that it's going to close in 2 years, 3 years, and then they can plan better to liquidify assets. And last but not least, it's a great option for first-time buyers because, again, it gives them that leverage to plan and that time to be able to,
So really, it's a commodity, but, buying. So most of the time we talk about a condo, but it could be a semi, it could be a townhouse, it could be a detached house. But townhouses are more the longer term projects. And for the most part, we're talking about condos for the most part. But, semis and townhouses and detached houses are not as long as extended period. A condo, you're going to be looking anywhere on an average 2 to 4 years, would you say?
Yeah.
Sure. There'll be some shorter, some longer, but on an average, you're looking at 2 to 4 years. Okay? So you invest, 5%, 10%, 15 or 20%, depending on the builder right now, you can get better deposit structures.
Correct.
Which is one of the good things about buying right now, because if you're thinking about buying right now, I've never seen the builders giving the buyers so much more incentive. I realize there'll be a time where they'll give you no incentives and they'll want their top dollar and that's all they'll get. But right now, there's a little lull in the market. Rates are supposed to change in June. So that little lull might go a little bit like this. If that changes a little bit then, it's only going to be a quarter point, but every change is a change in the market. So, some people invest in stocks. I personally myself, I've never been a great stock investor. I've got a poor portfolio or had maybe some of the wrong financial planners to lead me to that direction. Where I always think that a real estate for myself it's a longer term investment. And if you're willing to invest in a longer term, the rewards will come back to you and not as risky.
You say risky. So when it comes to our amazing province of Ontario or Canada, it has proven solid, right? If you take a look at numbers, stats, charts from the 1970s to now, there have been some small glitches along the way, but it's pretty much line solid. Going
yes,
up.
As long
right?
as you're long term.
Exactly. And also, not just, for those who are looking to invest, but overall, money, whether we like to admit it or not, is very important. It's in human life, right? It is survival. And because of factors such as inflation, however much you're saving or you're making, it can be eaten up because of inflation. And we saw that last year when inflation went skyrocket and we had, what was it, 30%? Something crazy,
Yes.
right? So in order to be able to make sure that you're going to be safe and secure and your clients for older age, investments, and specifically investment in real estate, I believe is a great way to tackle that inflation and all of that, right? There is a rule, and you know this, Daryl, the 80-20 rule, right?
Tell them what the 80-20 rule is.
So 80-20 rule is, it's only about 20%, and again, in each circumstance, it may not be exactly 80-20, but you get the idea that it's about 20% of your actions, your focus, that delivers 80% of the result that you need. So if I would go to you guys and say, okay, out of 100 things that you would do in a month, if you were, well, let's go with a smaller scale. Out of 10 things that you would do in a week, there are really 2 things that are of absolute importance to make sure that your income is sustainable and going up. What would that be? Prospecting, right? And the methods that you're good at, right? And a second one would be education, possibly keeping up to date so that you can have better dialogues with your clients so that prospecting can turn into transactions and better business, right? How did we get here? Anyhow, so yes, investing in real estate.
There's so many ways that you can invest. You and I can be husband and wife or live together, whatever, and want to invest. So we may have a house now, but down in the future you may want to downsize. So you're investing in the future. I've already got a couple condos, so if I'm going to leave my large house, maybe I could go to either one of those condos. And it may not be either one of those condos, it might be something else, but at least they're there, that I have a place to go. And, being a self-employed, that's sort of equity that I'm saving up for my retirement package, right? To me, it's way more secure than I've done in stocks. That no matter what, if I bought it today and I hold it for 10 years, it's going to double its price. It's almost inevitable, maybe double and maybe more. So to me, it's the safest. Listen, to me, the housing market is the safest and best way. Now, there's other ways, but for my knowledge and my security, that's the best way to enhance my wealth. And you look at anybody that's got any wealth, I don't care who it is, Gates, Jobs,
it's
all those guys have heavily invested into real estate. Well, every person has invested in real estate. So, you can have one portfolio, your own principal residence, which, everybody's striving to have their own principal residence. But if you haven't got your own principal residence, then maybe buying something in the future that over 2 or 3 years that you can save enough money that you can own your first ownership. And that's really where a lot of it comes from.
That's where it starts,
right?
Exactly. Yeah, so again, going back to pre-construction, it's one of the ways that makes it possible for many to become property owners if it's their first, or become a savvy investor. And it gives them that, again, timing that they can accumulate, more deposits and so on to make sure that they have enough of comes to closing. But we were chatting with a few of your agents before we got started here that also pre-construction, as you know, it is a niche, right? So it's not.
It's not for everybody.
It's not for everybody, right? And you have to know your numbers. You have to know as a professional. You've got to know the supply and demand of the area, builder portfolio. There's so many little factors that are absolutely intricate.
Here's one here. What criteria to use to elevate and select pre-construction projects to invest in? Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things that I was taught when I started this real estate business, location, 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 right? So, obviously you're buying in a prime area, you're going to pay a prime price. So it will start from there. Like you bought in Yorkville, you're going to pay the highest stuff in the city, right? You can buy outside, down at King Street, and you can go all the way up through York Region, all the way up to Barrie, for argument's sake. right? Burlington, Hamilton, you know, now you see a lot of people are investing in outland areas like out east or west, and because they don't have to invest as much. Those prices might be only $300,000, and they can buy a small little condo there. And you know what they're saying is, oh, we can ensure we can rent it out for you. That's the tag. Now you don't know if they can or they can't. It's easy to talk, but have they proven that company in 3 years' time, if it closes, that they can guarantee that they can rent it out for you? That's yet to be seen. Because that's why you got to look at a track record of the builders that you're working with. Track records is another big thing.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
You know,
and pipeline of, upcoming and future projects to know that they have been in business, but they intend to remain in the business for a long time. And going back to, different prices, you're paying a premium for some areas, there's something called a doubling factor. Doubling factor is different for each submarket. So if you take a look at our doubling factor in downtown Toronto, it's roughly about 5 years. That's doubling your investment, right? If you take a look at North York, it's anywhere between 7 to 10 years, depending on the style and type of the property you purchase. So and again, going back to that individual, yes, we all would like to be able to afford the best locations at a premium price and get the best doubling factor. However, if you're not in that position, get started where you are, right? So if you can't buy in Toronto, buy in Hamilton. Just make sure you get in the market if you haven't already, because again, going back to our numbers, which is, proof is in numbers from 1970s. If you take a look, it's gone up. You and I, we were at this thing with Benjamin Tal from CIBC, right? And because Canada is a safe haven, because of all the immigrants who are coming, because of our rules and regulations, because of so many factors that makes Ontario and then Toronto an absolute attraction for most of these immigrants to come to, and because of job opportunities and all of that, and because of the fact that we are so low in supply, and we will be for the next 10 to 15 years minimum, it's a no-brainer, right? The prices will go up. Are we going to have, again, little bumps in the road? Absolutely, right? However, real estate is a long-term game, right?
Listen, if I'm going to buy a condo, I'm going to say to myself, okay, how long do I plan and intend to own this? Probably forever, right? I'll pass it down to other family members or whatever, probably later in life. But I look at it as, I don't get a pension. So having other portfolio in real estate, let's say I bought something for $500 today, and I'm hoping in 10 years that 500's gone to $1 million, just for argument's sake. So I'll rent it out, and then at that point in time, I've got $500,000 of equity that I can sell it off and then just live off that equity, right?
Exactly. That's actually what Steve and I were chatting about. And he was telling me a story how his wife, she was in the banking industry for over 20 years. And then they evaluate and they take a look at, okay, what is her pension going to be? And what are other better ways to make sure that they are more financially secure when it gets to their older age? And the best thing is exactly what you described, that when you purchase properties one at a time, not overstretching yourself, not overdoing it to make sure that you're safe. Once you come to your older age, your income tax bracket will be lower. These properties will be hopefully paid off by then, and if you have to dispose of them, at least you're not going to end up paying
capital gains so much,
right? So you will save on taxes. There's just so much that goes into it, but generally it's one of the safest way to become financially independent and secure.
There's only so much land, and like I say, you think of the amount of people that are coming in here. It used to be like 40,000, 60,000, 80,000. Now it's 500,000 people coming in a year, right? So, I can see one day they'll be bringing in 1 million people in a year. So where do you put those people? There is not enough housing. That's why you see, which we've never seen before, tent cities, because the people they're priced out and they can't afford it. So they don't want to move out of the city because at least if they're in the city, they can go bum and scrounge and get whatever, like there.
And also, we're going to become more unaffordable, most likely. Reason being, so during the past year and a half, there were many projects that decided, you know what, we're not going to come to the market. We do not want to price it low. We can afford to just sit on the project and wait for the market to get better. So imagine in a market that we're already so short in supply, they stopped coming to the market for a period of a year and a half. Now, where do you think that's going to impact us? Once the rates go down and buyers come back to the market, there isn't much to buy because there weren't projects being launched in the past year and a half. And this year also they have substantially slowed down. So when there is no supply and there are buyers, what do you think happens? Prices go up, right? So those who are savvy, they are buying, and again, not just anywhere, not just anything, but projects, pre-construction that makes sense, not closing until 27, 28, in order to be able to benefit from the price appreciation that will be coming in 2026-ish, which is inevitable. So.
See, what you have to look at is when you look into delve into it, everybody's situation is different. There's no two situations that are the same. What you want is basically what you guys want. What you want, something different. Everybody has something. You got kids. Maybe my kids are going to go to university in a different area. So maybe I'll buy a place they can live in, and instead of renting, now we have our own place that we can have them live in the place and get other people to rent it out with them, so it's being paid for. Many times you see that happen, and that's a great thing to do. Lots of people do that, London and Guelph and other places, right? So are you going to be an end user? Are you going to have one of your children live in it? So maybe your kids want to work downtown. So instead of them renting off somebody else, you're going to help them go buy a property using the equity of your principal residence, and then they can get a mortgage there, and then they could live there and pay you rent or put it in their name, and you're already giving them their benefits while you're alive instead of dead, right? Why do you always have to give it to them when through death, exactly. Right? So I see so many more sophisticated families today helping the kids out well in advance because financially they can do it, right? So for the young people, the prices, when I bought my first place, it was at Dufford and Steele's. It was $92,000, right? 19 Sundown Court. That was the actual address. And, I was only 21 or something like that, making a little bit of money, whatever. So it was a 9-month closing. I remember going out and I, plowed snow and did cartilage besides my full-time job. So I went out and really worked hard, saved up enough money for a bigger deposit for my mortgage would be lower. So today, same thing. Sometimes you've got to borrow money from the family, and the family could put their inheritance while they're still alive that you can enjoy it today. Why do you have to listen? If you want to have a birthday party, you like to have it on your 25th versus your 75, right?
Ideally both, but sure.
Yeah. So I see a lot more people giving their inheritances much earlier than in the old days, that families are helping out the kids because if they want to stay in Toronto GTA, they basically have to. They don't want their kids going to Calgary or out east, out to New Brunswick or Nova Scotia, because they're not going to see them that much. And if you're, you love your kids and you love your grandchildren, you're going to still want them close by. So go help invest and get them something.
Definitely. But what you also mentioned was, and if we can focus on that, in your 20s, you had a full-time job, but you realized that if you want to make this happen, you have to get creative. and you added some more activities to it. And right now, it hasn't been this easy ever to be able to make like to have more production and income from other activities that are your passion. Let's say those of you who are really good with social, or if you have podcasts or whatever it may be, not discounting your other passions that complement your skill set and your current business as well. That could bring you some income as well, just like you you got creative and you went about that, right?
Well, yeah, I went to work more.
Talking about pricing, I remember I bought my first detached Yongan Drury, which is Yongan Kamarish.
You know, that's right. I grew up in North York there.
Oh, yeah.
You know Kings Avenue.
Yeah.
Right? So the Wheelers, the cleaners was right at the corner.
Yes.
They lived on our street.
There you go.
Right?
You go.
And
that
then you
was
had the
my
bank
cleaners
right
for
there.
the longest time. Yeah. 65 frontage, Daryl, 150 depth. So you can put you can't do a 3-car garage. A good
65
size,
you can.
65 you can,
65,
right?
yeah.
I bought it for 500 something thousand, right? How many years ago do you think that was?
Way over 10.
About 14 years ago. So imagine right now, and going just a few years back before then, in North York, C14, if you wanted to buy land 50 by 150, it would cost you just under $500,000. So 15 years after, the same piece of land is just under $2 million. So that gives you your doubling factor, right? So imagine if this goes forward the way it has, and it seems to be, right? There's no other way. Imagine 10 years from now where prices are going to be. So when you're speaking with your clients, maybe you can leverage these conversations. So when they say, well, I'm just going to wait for another 6 months or another 2 months, in the long scheme of things, none of this is going to matter. The best time to have bought a property was yesterday. The next best one is today. Right?
Listen,
and
if
also
a property
herd
goes
mentality.
if a property goes up 1, 2, or 3%, your income doesn't go up equally because it's a much bigger production. You know, normally let's call it even $500,000. So if it goes up 1%, 2%, 3%, you get further behind the affordability of being able to buy it. So you're better to jump in sooner, take the debt, and the first year or two is your biggest struggles. That's normally what it is.
Yeah,
and after that, it becomes
also,
easier.
Like if you take a look at society in general, it doesn't consist of wealthy people, right? Why that is, it's that mostly the individuals where we have herd mentality, right? So we're followers. So if the market is scary, we all stop. If everyone's buying, we want to buy it. If everyone's selling, we want to sell. Instead of just evaluating and seeing, okay, if everyone is selling, maybe I should think about buying now. Or if no one's buying right now, if I can leverage that pre-construction or whatever it may be to take advantage of the opportunity of lower pricing, easier conditions offered by the developers. With 5%, you can secure properties up to $1 million or maybe higher, not closing earlier than 2028 with $50,000.
I would have to say right now, if investors thinking about buying an investment condo, I would call it a 12. From 1 to 10, I'd call it a 12. I don't think there's been a better time when the builders are willing to negotiate on, first of all, the deposits they bring in. Some of them may hold they want their 20%, some over a longer period of time, but they've been a little more lenient on that, number one. Number two, they may throw in some extras. Like if it's not built, they may throw in
upgrades, or there's so many of them that are offering zero development charges, zero levies. These are tens of thousands of dollars in savings. So potentially your closing cost is in par as if you were buying a resale property, right? And it's not going to last forever. And those who are savvy are taking advantage of this. again, the mentality of, we're not in the stock market, buy it now, flip it in 2 years and become a millionaire. No, that doesn't exist. But if you're looking to get into investing in real estate and building a portfolio, there hasn't been a better, I've been doing this for 22 years, a few years less than you. I've never seen more incentives, better opportunities to exist for buyers ever. Yeah.
So that's why you really now more than ever, like I just talked to an agent. She's been very good in pre-construction. Now pre-construction is slowed down dramatically. So she just had a good sale in the resale market. She sold something at 2.4. Mm-hmm. So she's like, I'm out of here. I'm going to go sell resale again, right? Because it's harder for them. Like if you already own, like investors, lots of them buy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's not unheard of to have just an average investor have 8 properties. So if they got 8 mortgages, right now they're up maybe to here. They can't, and with renting and mortgages, they can't go out and buy something right now. So they got to be on this plateau, right? But trust me, they would like to be buying right now because it's so favorable. People say, oh yeah, the mortgage rates are higher, but if I get it at, say, 5% or I got it at 4.5%, I can get a better deal at 5% than I can at 4.5%. So it will more than offset my principal that I actually borrowing on is going to be less than the 4.5, because that's what you got to look at. What's the principal? It's not about what the rate is. It's what the principal. So if the rates are really low, we know prices are going to go through the moon again. The Bank of Canada and the government of Canada have been trying to get the prices to come down, but real estate is still very resilient. Sales have been slower in April, but prices didn't change a whole lot. They were only down $1,000 from the year before. And this is in a bad market, what they call it. So the bad market is not that bad. If you overlook at the over things and you look at weighing everything out, right? Where else, if you've been bad, your business might be down 20, 30, or 40%. But if you're only down $1,000 in your equity, you didn't lose too much. And it's going to bounce back. When the rates come down, like I say, 2025, 2026, it's inevitable that house prices are going to go back up again. And how much they go up.
And also, you said something that is just, it couldn't be more true. So let's say that you're making a purchase right now and you're saving $300,000 because of the way the market is, right? With pre-construction also, you don't have to get a mortgage. So you just save $300,000. You don't have to pay the rate or any of that, nothing. Comes 2027, 2028 for you to want to close. So you have leveraged this opportunity. You got the discount. Now you have the jump in price increase in 2026 and afterwards because of our supply and demand situation. And there's just no better way really for anyone to be able to either expand their portfolio or to get started.
So I bought a condo and I bought it in the very peak. But it was supposed to be built this year. It's probably not going to be finished in 2 more years. So in 2 years more, otherwise I would probably, what I paid for it, it wouldn't be as much as what I paid for it. So that's when I say the risk part, because that's thinking short term. But, if I can afford to close it, then I it may cost me a little bit at the beginning, but in year 2, 3, or 4, I'll be up ahead again. So it'll be just a short-term portfolio. But lucky enough, because I'm lucky, that they've delayed the closing 2 more years. So, and then it might be worth what I paid for it, and then I'm in good shape. So, there is some risk. It's not risk-free. Don't think everything is risk-free, because that's what you have to let people know.
Absolutely.
That it's
calculated
not.
risk.
Yes,
right?
It's calculated risk. So, if long as you can carry a mortgage at that point in time, that's why the banks want to make sure that you can secure a mortgage. And you're going, why are you bugging me now? I don't need it for 3 years. Because they want to make sure that you have the affordability of if things go wrong, that you can close it. Because they don't want to take it off you. They're not in the thing of defaulting, having people default before they even close. The banks don't even want that, right? So that's why now they come up with, for first-time buyers, only in pre-construction, now they need to do this in resale. They come up, you can use $60,000 of your RSP money now, self-direct RSP. They used to have it before and then sort of disappeared, and now it's back for first-time home buyers or pre-construction only. Plus, now they got a 30 or 35-year amortization for a mortgage. So you can spread that mortgage out over 35 years. You could get $60,000 where you saved up that money, that you can take your own money and use it as a deposit. So you're a win-win situation there. They need to do that for resale.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
I would like to see them take it up to 80,000, but 60 is a good start. That, you can go save up 60,000 and use it yourself directed out of your. So you're paying yourself to have your deposit money. How good is that? Right?
Going back to investment in general and being able to create more wealth, there is one big difference between Canadians and Americans, right? Canadians usually ask, how much can I save? Americans ask, how do I make more to afford it? So if at this point in time, a client of yours or for yourselves or family, you're thinking of, okay, how can I save more to do this or to buy this? How can you make more money to do it instead of saving more, right? So
that's what I did when I bought my first house. I made more money to get the principal down.
There you go,
Right? Key is always to get your principal down. Listen, if your principal, it's borrowing. So if your principal's down, you're borrowing less. It costs you less, no matter what the rates are.
And also it goes back to our first 5 minutes that we talked about consistency and passion. You find your passion and you're consistent at it. It's inevitable that by practicing and becoming better and doing better, you will be able to have that income that can support your way of investing in your way of life, right?
I have some people, I used to go to an investment thing for years. So I've got friends, it's called doors, they buy doors. And their only job is now to look after their doors, right? So they have, say, 10 doors, 20 doors, whatever amount of doors they have. They're small, because some people have a lot more, but that's all they work on, is living off the rents from the doors that they have. So their biggest aggravation is if when one tenant leaves, to get them out of there and not have 9 months of non-payment, and have to go to arbitration. Like I just talked to someone today, my friend, they fought with someone that's in the condo. So now they got a court order and now they got to be out of there by the end of May. But, if you have those type of situations, it's always a bit of a hiccup. So that's where you have some risk. But,
But if it were easy, everyone would do it, right?
Yes, of course. Right? So what financial planning tips can you offer for those looking to invest in pre-construction? And how should investors prepare for the initial down payments and subsequent installments?
Very important question. It has to be done by consulting with your accountant and with your lawyer, 100%. Because no matter how great we are as professionals, we're not accountants. And when we are consulting with clients, they may not want to share or not even remember everything that they're responsible for financially and the potential assets or income that they have. So it takes a professional to do that. I usually suggest that, we have that first consultation, and then depending on the amount of cash they have on hand versus costs and what they're facing, at least for the next couple of years, because it's very important to have a cushion somewhere, just in case if something happens, if the market changes, like you said, rents are still lower, rates go higher, you have to cover a larger amount per month to make that happen. So making sure that they have that cushion and not to overstretch themselves. You can get rich slowly. It's safer that way.
Well, rents are crucial because you have rent controls. You have newer buildings, older buildings. So you have different rent controls. There's two different rules, right? And so you need to know, like the older buildings, you get a way bigger square footage, right? And you pay the utilities sometimes which are going to be higher. But because they're higher utilities and maintenance, then the cost of bigger units per square foot is not equal. So when everybody says, how much is it a square foot for specific condo, it's not the same. It's not like, okay, you're going to get $1,000 per square foot for all condos. It doesn't work that way. Because again, location, depends whether it's new, depends if it's old, depends how much you're paying on your maintenance fees. Your maintenance fees are high, it's going to drag the prices or keep them down. I just sold that one on Doris, and so we had her spend $10,000 fixing up. We did new appliances, we did new countertops, we did new floors. She would have only sold probably in the low 500s, but by spending $10,000, she sold it for almost $590.
That's amazing.
Right? So, there's things that you can do to fix, and that's just a resale. It's not pre-construction. But, when you're buying new, you don't have to spend any money. So it's more of, so many companies are offering these rent things now.
Yes, so they cover they call it rent guarantee program. And again, you did mention that, it depends on
The
builder
builder,
portfolio
yes.
to make sure that we're safe there. But they are guaranteeing anywhere between 12 months to 3 years after taking occupancy that they will pay you a monthly rent, regardless of if they've been able to rent it out or not. And they tell you exactly the dollar amount per square foot. For downtown Toronto, for example, there's one project that's offering $7 per square foot rent for 3 years after you take over. So when you calculate after paying your 20% deposit gradually, the amount of mortgage you'd have to pay at a fair interest rate that, we assume we will have in 28, 29, you will see that you will end up in positive cash flow with that amount of rent based on the price that they're selling today, which is not that common to fall into positive cash flow when purchasing pre-construction with 20% down. So there are many great opportunities out there.
So as an investor, so it's one thing if you're buying a condo and you're going to have your daughter, your son, or someone move into it that you know. But now you're an investor, you're buying this unit and you don't know who's going in there. You're not going in there. You're buying as an investment. So sometimes you're a little worried. So that's why the builders now are giving you rent. They'll guarantee you so much rent or over such a period of time. There's no risk because you know that, hey, they're going to guarantee I get rent no matter what. Now, if you take it yourself, and you probably get more rent than they're offering you, but they're giving you a guaranteed amount. So there's got to be some fixated cost on that.
They include that in a format of an amendment, so you have that as a part of your contract. So it's a binding agreement, and you can count on having that, whether if it's for a year or 3 years.
So that certainly lets you go to bed at night feeling very secure that your investment is safe. Because the toughest time is in the first 1, 2, or 3 years. Once you make it past that, most of the time it's clear sailing.
Exactly. So imagine if you're, again, buying something for $1 million and gradually you're putting down anywhere between $50,000 to $150,000 in a time span of 4 years. You take over in 28, 29, you have 3 years of rental guarantee. So really, this $50,000 to $150,000 will take you well into 2031, which is incredible, right?
So that means the builder is going to have to get a landlord to manage those rental properties. That's really what it means, right? And if you think of some of the big builders that are offering that you and I know very well, these guys are very well secured builders. So their money is safe, or your money is safe, whoever it is, right? So navigating legal and regulatory issues. Can you discuss some of the legal and regulatory considerations that are crucial when investing in pre-construction?
It's very important to get the agreement first and foremost, to get it reviewed by a lawyer who is well versed, not just in real estate, in reviewing builder agreements, because those professionals who are not well versed at it, they will flag everything. Everything will look like it's a threat, and they don't know what is standard and what is not, so that can kill your deal for no reason. The buyer will end up losing, you will end up losing, and it's a lose-lose situation for everyone. So having the agreement reviewed. We had a case yesterday as an example. One of our Bayview agents called, and you know him very well, and he said, well, my client, there is an agreement now, it's time to take over the unit and we want to rent it out, and they got permission right from the beginning that we're allowed to rent out the unit once we take over. But now they've put a bill in front of us for $30,000 for this right. So they did not get the agreement reviewed. And it had vague wording stating that, yes, you will have the right to rent during occupancy, given that if there are any costs associated at that time, you cover it. They didn't even quote a specific price. So the wording was vague. And either, I don't know if they had it reviewed or not, because this person had
Sounds like they
taken
didn't.
refuge into our agent. The buyer had bought it from another agent from another company. So $30,000, and the unit is a one bedroom for like $575,000. And the investor doesn't have that kind of cash lying around, and if they did, it just makes absolutely no sense. So situations like this can be fully avoided if you get a lawyer who is well versed in builder agreement reviews involved within the 10-day cooling off period, and make sure that we understand all the rules, regulations, terms, whatever it is that
Any
is
caps,
being,
right?
all of
Caps.
that. Yeah. So
Because
that would be
most places you buy, there'll be development charges. So let's say I bought something for $500,000. So I come up, I've given them 20% of the $500,000. Now it's 4 years later, and now I'm going to close it. But there's development charges, and unless you negotiated and got them in writing, you're at odds with the builder, because they can change those to whatever suits them at this point in time. But if you got a sharp lawyer, he's going to put a cap on it, that it's not going to exceed any amount. So maximum, this will be your worst case situation, your worst case, not your best case. Because most times they're not. It'll be your worst case if your lawyer hasn't done something and capped it off. So I would never buy or have one of my purchasers buy without getting it capped off. And I would very strongly suggest that they always make sure it's capped.
It can be a very dangerous game for your clients and for yourselves, because if the deal doesn't close, there's no commission for you, right? They will take the commissions back. It's a very dangerous game not to have numbers or caps on these amounts. At times, again, it's very easy to get super excited. Oh, it's only $1,000 per square foot, and it's not going to be ready for another 4 years. I'm winning. Not if within the agreement you don't have any caps, because at the end of, when the property is ready, the bill they put in front of you for tens of thousands of dollars, that can actually end up being $1,250 per square foot, right? So there are lots of little bits and pieces that goes into selling pre-construction or purchasing successfully. It has to be through a professional, a team of professionals, real estate agent, lawyer,
Mortgage broker.
Exactly, mortgage broker, and the developer. So you have a pro here, and he's been doing this for how many years, Daryl?
34 years.
34 years.
I get my rookie card next week.
There you go.
Right? So what kind of returns and profit margins can investors typically expect from pre-construction investments? And that's a tricky question because, again, depends how much deposit you put in, depends on when you bought it, depends on what the rents are in a certain area. But what would be a typical, would they get 2%, would they get 3%, would they get 4% on their money?
In a traditional market and a traditional deposit structure, which would be 20%, you stand to gain roughly around 120 to 140% on your deposit. So if you, for ease of calculation, if it's $1 million, you pay $200,000. Your $200,000 in 4 years should grow anywhere between 120 to 140,000. So you will end up just around $450,000, including your own deposit, without having really done anything except choosing well and working with the right professionals.
Right.
Yeah.
So lots of people, as you know, buy pre-investment, and they have no intentions of closing that pre-investment, right? You know, and that's why you have a lot of stuff on assignment right now, because there's different type of investors. Ones that we call just flippers that just want to go buy the property, and they're hedging on making maybe 10%, 15% from the time they buy it till the time it closes out, and then they go sell it. They can make a 10 or 15% profit. So they're the short-term investors. So they're the ones right now with all the assignments, right? Because they bought it as an investment. You know, the one we have up the house we have up the road. She bought that as an investment. She didn't buy it to live in it long term, right? So they're the short-term investors that they just want to buy it and flip it for 10 or 15% profit before it closes. Then they don't have to bring in any more money. They just sell it out as it is. So I bought this. I bought it for $500,000. So really, I'm looking to sell it for $650,000 3 years down the road or 4 years down the road, right? I'm going to cash out and let her buy the property, let her close on the property. So now she's got to make sure that the caps are in place, because sometimes in the assignments, you got to make sure that you check out all the stuff that's on that assignment, because whatever's on that assignment, you got to follow verbatim. There's no that if I'm the first investor, Sogol is my second investor, she has to buy it exactly how I bought it. There's zero changes that she can change. The only thing that I'm changing is I bought it for $500. I'm selling to her for $650. So I'm making $150,000 profit. I'm out of here. I don't give a damn. But if she comes short on it, as the first buyer, I'm still responsible for her inactions, right?
Correct. And also, you know, that 150,000, I wouldn't get that excited about it. Short-term investment in real estate, maybe some years ago it was profitable. Currently, because of all the taxes, closing costs, land transfer tax that has gone much higher, and so much more, you really end up with, if you're lucky, you know, you'll be making maybe $10,000-$20,000 at the end, with commissions and everything that you have to pay. Going in pre-construction, when I speak with my own clients, I always say that this is a minimum, a 10-year commitment, minimum, right? So you have your, let's say on average, 4 years for it to be developed and ready. The first year is going to be very hectic, because those who haven't planned well, those who haven't worked with professionals, they end up assigning or defaulting. So when you see on MLS within the first year, prices are all over the place for that building, which is its own ecosystem, right? And you have to wait for the dust to settle to see the actual evaluation of the units in there. So that's another year, that's 5. And it takes about a year for them to finish everything and for the developer to move out of the building. The first 5 years, within the first 2 really, there is exponential growth in terms of profits within most buildings in good pockets of the city, because when it's newer, you know, it's just the shiny object, and many would want to buy it through resale, because in some nationalities, you know, pre-construction just isn't a thing, and they only purchase resale. So those buyers are going to come along. And then within the first 5 years, once the building has settled and so on, then if you want to go ahead and sell it, which again I don't recommend, then you're going to make your bank is going to be very happy. You're going to make a lot of money. Going back to what you said, again, reiterating that real estate, it's best to build a portfolio and never sell unless you absolutely must.
I've got a lot of investors that will never sell.
No.
They've got, and they have a lot of property. So,
Look at New York, right?
216, 217, I seen the market was so on fire that I would buy it in 1 week time. I would sell it to Sogol. I would make $20,000 or $30,000. I didn't do anything. Just bought it, turn it over, make my 20 or 30. She would turn it over to somebody else. She'd make her 20 or 30. It may turn over 7 times before you got an end closer.
Yeah.
And that wasn't unheard of. And that's why then the builders started saying, hey, we can't have so much flipping because it was out of control, right? So, because the builder, at the end, he wants his money. He's not really caring if you make your profit. He can live with that. But the problem is, now he sold it to me for, say, 500, and now that last buyer, when the market was so hot, has bought it for 700. We haven't even closed. So meanwhile, there's 7 people that got that $200,000 profit. Everybody's taking a little chunk. They didn't want a lot. They just want to take 20 or 30. Happy with that. You know, they're supposed to pay capital gains on that because then they weren't even paying capital gains. So Revenue Canada started coming down on everybody because, like, I would probably say at that time, probably 50% of the investors, the small little short investors, were not paying their capital gains. And that's when Revenue Canada got involved and started going after all these people for these little amounts. 20 or 30,000, not a lot of money. But when you got thousands of them, it's millions and millions and millions of dollars. So, you know, they got, if it's short term, you're going to have to pay capital gains on it, right? So, you know, your investment, you made 30,000, so you're going to make $15,000 profit. That's okay, I like it, but it's not that much, right? That's why you're better to go longer term, less headache, and you make more solid profit down the road, right?
Yeah. I know we only have maybe 3 more minutes left. Just
I'm going to take some questions. I'll
yes,
see if anyone has
sounds
any
great.
questions,
Sure.
right? So, Nick,
Sure.
come on up to the mic. Come up to the mic. Nick is always good for questions. He's a 26-year veteran.
Thanks again. Quick question: the lease is the
Lease during occupancy?
no
Oh, the lease back guarantee?
the lease
Okay.
back guarantee, yes. So let's say the builder has capped it at $7 or $5 a square foot. At the time, you know, when it does come around and you're ready to lease it, let's say out there you can get $9 a square foot.
You have the option of doing that yourself.
Doing it
and
yourself.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
without a cost, obviously.
Correct.
The
So-
guarantee is for you can go to bed
Yeah,
at
no,
night
I
in
understood. I
peace.
just thought maybe there was some kind of.
So, since we're in real estate, everything is negotiable, right?
Right.
And if that is something that you would like to make a note of, then we can make sure that the amendment is worded so that if it's $7 or lower, that you rent it out and you give that to us. If it's any higher, we'll take over.
Right, so
return
it's
agent.
negotiable.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
And for the professionals that you say that, deal strictly with pre-con and so forth, do we as RE/MAX have maybe a few?
We do. So at Corman and Company, we have Sarah, and they work with Yummy directly, I believe. They strictly deal with new developments, and that's it. They
Okay.
have 2 individuals.
So we have
who are-
somebody at our disposal.
So does
Yeah.
Gary
Yeah.
Shapiro. They have a whole wing.
Oh, they have a whole
They
wing
all-
as well.
yeah,
Okay,
that they
that's
just
good
do
to
the
know.
same thing.
That's good to know.
Right.
And one last question. I only came up for 2, but so when you first time buyer, so they decide to sell on assignment. So title's never passed, obviously. So their rebate, that's not nullified because of the assignment, right?
Just because you haven't taken title, it doesn't mean that you didn't make the purchase.
Right.
So unfortunately, and again, when it comes to taxes, I do the best that I can to stay away from giving advice
I
and
hear you.
leave it to lawyers and accountants. However, it is a transaction. They're benefiting from it. Just because they didn't take over the title, it doesn't mean that there wasn't a transaction. And automatically, they also go into the investor category because they're selling without closing, and that possibly can show intention of making money rather than
So
a
are we
first-
talking about now the capital gains or the first
all
time
of it,
rebate?
all of it. So,
all
for
of
the,
it.
For the rebate,
Yes.
they will be able to, as far as I know, and we can
Yep.
double check this. As far as I know, they will be able to use it, and not a second time. So that it will count
one time-
towards
Oh,
their-
it will count.
It is
both,
your first
even
time
though
home
they're
buyer.
not.
It's a
go-
tra-
Even though
yes.
they're not
But
going to.
after that, they've lost it. You get a one-time,
Yeah.
first-time buyer.
So you can't retract if you're
No,
if you're assigning it.
unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Right? Good question, Nick.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Do we have anything here in the chat? No? Everybody's quiet? Right? Any of you guys got any questions?
All good?
Any of you guys dabbling in pre-construction now? Right? Igor, you are?
Yeah, I've got clients who are interested.
All right. Well, and what advice do you give them when they're going into the projects or what they're looking for? Yeah.
So, what advice would you give them when they're looking at clients?
So before we start the session today, we had a couple of really great conversations, and I think the major challenge here is that they would like to know more about how to run their numbers, how to understand and be able to distinguish between affordability, for lack of a better word, a good project and a not so great project, which one is profitable, which one is not, because options are so many. But how do we make the best choice and then bring that to our clients? That was one of the questions that we were chatting about, and it's a whole can of worms that you've got to know your numbers, you've got to know the area, and then you've got to make sure that you are narrowing it down and making sure that it's based on the scenario of the person sitting in front of you. Let's say in resale, if I'm coming to buy a house from you, you're not going to show me the entire MLS. First, you ask me specific
Right.
questions and see what's right for me, and then you narrow it down, and then you show me the property. So it goes the same for.
I'm going to go through a series of questions for any investor at any given time. One is, what is your main purpose for this investment? Is it an end user investment? Is it just short-term investment that you want to buy it and flip it? Are you going to keep it for longer term? Do you have kids that may move into it later on? You may want to be downsizing in 10 years and moving into the location later on, right? So I would ask them a series of 10 questions every time and I would never sway from that. Because then once you have those answered, you can give them a better direction of where they should be headed, right? Because if they don't know where they're headed, how are you going to know where they're headed? So that's why you got to help them find out what their direction is. Because they just think, oh, yeah, let's go buy something and make money. You got to help them see the overall picture versus just the face. Because that's all everybody wants to make money. But like I said, there is calculated risk, but if it's longer term, the risks diminish, right? So it doesn't matter you're buying resale or you're buying new. If you're going to hold something for 10 years, your risks just go like this. If you're looking to buy it for 1 or 2 years, you're going to have risks, 5 years even, right? Because we just seen the market, back in 2021, like right out the roof, like just crazy. We never seen it so high. And then, then the government imposed mortgages. They made those crash down. So they still didn't get what they want to get because the prices still remained relatively high. They were hoping we would be probably 20% lower than we are today. So, now we come to June is when our sort of promised land is the rates are going to come down a bit. But, you see them always hedging their bet and saying, oh, unemployment's at 6.4, as high as it's ever been. Blah, blah, blah. So I never count my chickens till they're hatched. You know, we're all waiting for that to happen. And the thing that I see about this market is it's one of the most confused markets for a lot of people because they don't know, is it going up, is it going down? Well, they've held it steady for a good period right now. So, and here's what I tell people, that when I started real estate mortgages were 21%, but house prices were only 200,000 to 300,000. So 21% of 200,000 to 300,000 is a lot different than 21% at $1 million, right? Our average is $1,078,000. So 21% at $1,078,000, big, huge difference. So now they're down, under 6% that you can get a mortgage. So now it's become more affordable again. That, you just, before when you were getting free money anywhere from 0 to 1%, that's free money. That's why people were exceeding their limits of what they could buy. They could have only, say, bought $1 million. But hey, with these rates, I'm buying $2 million house. I'm buying a new car. I'm like, so a lot of people really put themselves really in underwater. And they're the ones that right now are having the biggest struggle with, the food has gone up 30% because of it. If, they blame it. But, a lot of people don't realize Ukraine and Russian war is causing costs for everybody. That's a major cost for everybody. So there's something there. Then, COVID hit. So food prices went up 30%, gas prices went up. Everything has gone up roughly 30%. So you were already at your peak at that low rate, but at the low rate it was easy to carry. But now the carrying costs are that much higher. So they've taken themselves out of the market. They're the ones that got to struggle. So that's why as an investor, you don't want to be buying at your peak. If there's something that happens, you don't have a cushion to fall back on, right? They always say you should have a few months rent money or 5-6 months rent money in reserves if something happens. But some people just want to take that risk. They're high risk gamblers, right? In anything. There's high risk, there's medium risk, and there's low risk. But if you have a good consultation with your real estate agent, with your mortgage agent, with your accountant, then you can pretty much put all of that to bed and feels pretty secure at what you're going to do. So really you got to do your homework and make sure you're making the right decisions, right? Because that's what I always ask everybody. What's your affordability? How do you know? Because lots of people tell me, oh yeah, I can go buy for $1 million. Well, how do you know you can go buy for $1 million? Did you talk to your mortgage broker? Did you talk to your bank? No, I just know. How do you know? It's like people tell me how much their house is worth. I go, how do you know how much your house is worth? Well, I just know. That's what I want. They don't have a concrete pillar on what to fall on. But realize your home, your condo, your home investment, whatever it is, it's generally someone's biggest investment. And you have to have clear, concrete facts and numbers to have clear facts and numbers of what it's worth. Whether you're buying, selling, or investing, or even renting. I can't go charge, well, I want to charge $3,000 rent, but everybody in the whole building is only charging $2,000. Well, why do you want $3,000? Because mine's nicer. I put new paint on. I put new floors on. I put a new kitchen in. Doesn't make it now worth $3,000 when everybody else in the whole building is only getting $2,000 rent, right? Because if you go talk to people that everybody has subjective value, I don't care who you are, that you think your property is worth more than anybody else for whatever reason. Like I said, I was at someone's house yesterday, and they think their house is worth $200,000 to $300,000 more than everybody else. Why? Well, they think their house is nicer, but it's not. They're going to knock the thing down anyway. So the house has no bearing on it, right? So, you just have to show them hard, cold facts of what I did. And that's what I did yesterday. So really, their numbers are still higher than what the market will bear today. In the peak, they were getting 2.2 in the peak, and now it's 2 years out of the peak. They want 2.4. It's possible, but it's not likely, right? So as professionals, we owe it to them to tell them the truth, because too many people go in and tell them whatever they want to hear, and they go buy something, and then they put themselves into hot water. So I owe it to the professional realtors and the people in the banks and the mortgages to tell them the truth. And then less people are going to be in hot water. And that's really the truth about it, right?
Well said.
Are you taking questions?
Yes.
Cool. How's it going?
Hi.
Good. So I have a question. Ontario pre-construction is really big. Obviously, we know Toronto is very popular with investors because they get almost a guaranteed return. There's that safety. If we were talking to investors, let's say we're going to Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo, maybe Hamilton, maybe London, would you say that there's a security there in investing as an investor from a perspective that you want to rent it out and then get some resale value? Or is it really that market just for end users where you're not going to see values appreciate?
I think Daryl can answer this question as well. There are parts such as Hamilton that rents are almost as high as Toronto, but purchase price is a lot lower.
Way lower.
There are projects right now that will give you maybe a good size one bedroom for about just under $500,000 in Hamilton that you don't have to get a mortgage for until 2027, and you only need 10% down. And they do have the rental guarantee program as well, which will show you that you're going to end up in positive cash flow. Other pockets such as Kitchener, Waterloo, if depending on your proximity to universities and so on, that could play a big factor. And again, going back to the first 5 minutes and what we discussed, it's very difficult and almost wrong to generalize and say yes, Kitchener or yes, Hamilton is good or bad. It depends on, like Daryl said, location and many other factors to see, okay, is this one project, is this one entity that we're aiming at, is this going to be a good case for our clients, right? But there are some really great cases, yes.
So in a case like this, Igor, that, let's say Kitchener, Hamilton, Calgary, any of these outlying areas, right? The prices are dramatically lower than they are Toronto GTA. So, and lots of builders are offering even the secure rents, right? But in a lot of those places, there's no rental places, right? So, you know, I was up in Quillenberry yesterday. What rental places are up there? Zero. So if someone built a condo up there, well, why are you building a condo up there? Well, because there's no one up there. So why wouldn't it? That's why Barrie's starting to build more, right? Barrie's a beautiful place, right? And they've got the big school right there. So they've got, you know, the one, look at the one here in Unionville, right? Yep, that place has got the university right there. So you got 10,000 people to rent.
And also, let's remember, Igor, our government, unfortunately, for many, many different reasons, they have failed to be able to provide affordable rental, homes. And if it weren't because of our investors, we would be in big trouble. So it is our investors who are actually providing opportunities within our rental market. And for that reason, I believe that, again, if you can get in the market, really, if it's Kitchener, if it's Hamilton or Toronto, the sooner the better. Prices will be going up depending on each location, each at its own rate. But in Toronto, the way it's been going, and from what we can see in the projections, we will very much become similar to New York in the next couple of decades. That you will see individuals who are who are owners of many properties, and those who are just strictly renters and cannot afford to get in the market anymore.
So here's a good thing, and I meant to bring this up early. So there's a grand opening for every building, and again, we're just talking condos, but even townhouses or semis or houses. They first open up. All the big incentives are at the beginning. They have friends and family, So they normally get in there. They get the best discounts. They get the best units. But that's why if you can get VIP, that you're getting in there first. Because there's many times where I've seen, especially when the market was going crazy, you know, this person bought in at, say, $700 a square foot. This person bought at 800 square foot, 900, 1,000, 1,200. So you have different levels in the whole building that now I got to go sell. It's 4 years later, 5 years later. Now when the building's built and it's done, I was one of the very first ones in there. She came in 2 years after I bought. I bought it for $200,000 less than she bought it for almost. So I can sell it for $200,000 less, still make a profit, and I'm out of there. So, you know, if you're one of the first ones in the building, you're going to probably buy, like, if the market starts to crash, that's a little different. But for the most part, if you buy the very first part, you're going to have the best prices and the best units available. Like sometimes builders will release the better place, like penthouses, not later on. They'll sell the other ones first because then they can get more money for those desirable units also. So it depends. I've seen many different tiers, 2 and 3, 4 tiers of what people paid for. Same freaking unit. You know, you've got a 2-bedroom, 800 square feet. They got a 800 square feet, but they paid $100,000 difference, right? Depends when you bought, right? You won the race, you lost the race, right? So, you know, if you're thinking of buying and you hear something, you know, call your realtor up right away and say, hey, what's the information on this? And try and be the first one in there, right? That's key. That's why Sogol goes out and gets us all this free stuff that we get in there with the builders first. We're going next week to Tridel, March 13th. So they're gonna show us 4 projects there, right? So you'll have first chance to help your clients go buy there before other people. So,
Amazing.
you know, when you have that opportunity, you got to grasp it and run with it, right? So, without any further ado, I'd like to thank Sogol.
Thank you so
It's
much
always
for
amazing to
having me.
have you here and your information. To everybody in the audience, live and on at home, we want to thank you for being here today. This has been Sharing with Mindsets with Daryl King. Until our next episode, be safe, be well, and if you want to invest, give us a call at 905-907-5464. Our home's at darylking.com, and we can get you out to any of these pre-presentations for any of the buildings that are coming up. So take care. Till next time. Bye-bye.